Hello, and welcome to Cardboard and Plastic today. Got a mail day, so hopefully my wife doesn't watch this video. Spent a little bit more on that card than I typically do. Has to deal with one of the cards in the back. And we'll get right into this. So I bought this card, and it's a graded card. I usually buy raw, and for the price, I just couldn't pass it up with the centering. It just called out to me. A 1948 Warren Spahn rookie card. There is a 1948-49 Leaf. However, a lot of the card collecting community call that a 1949 Leaf. So in my opinion, this is his true rookie. So this is a great card. A little bit of stain in the back, but no creases at all for this 2.5. So really adding to my Warren Spahn collection. And I've been buying a lot of PSA slabs. I mean, I got this one for cheap. I mean, this one's perfectly centered. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about how I grade. And this is one of the things that SGC, I like to buy their slabs, but grading with them is very difficult. They give very harsh grades, even more harsh grades, in my opinion, than PSA. And for example, here's another card that I graded with them. I mean, this card is absolutely gorgeous, and getting an 8.5 for a 1977 Robert Parrish is very difficult. I mean, this card is perfect. The centering is perfect. The surface is amazing. There's no snowing or anything with this card. So this is an absolutely gorgeous card. And if I did send this in, I mean, it would be minimum PSA 8, probably get a 9. They don't really give half grades that often with that card. So how do I grade? And the answer for that right now is I don't. The prices are absolutely ridiculous. I'm not going to pay SGC $30 a card. I'm not going to pay PSA $22 a card to get my card back in 5 months. CSG I was using because with the Elite membership, which I had, and all the discounts that they gave for getting into the Elite and discount codes, things like that, I mean, I was grading cards for about $10 a piece. However, now they raised it up to 15, so that would be $13.50 with your 10% discount. So I'm waiting right now, and I'm just having stacks of cards. I have this Alter Joe DiMaggio that has some issues with it. I'm just waiting to grade this card for $15 with SGC. I thought they would be there by now, but last week, 18,000 people submitted cards with SGC and had them graded for the very high prices. So I was wrong. I thought they were going to lower prices. It's going to be a while, but this is what I'm doing. This is my grading right now. Stacks of cards just sitting here ready to go, and I'm not going to spend more than $10 to $15 a piece to grade these. So we're just holding on to them. I got stacks of other cards. And that's what grading should be, in my opinion. It should be about $10 to $12 to get your car slabbed so you can have it for your collection. Now, here's a couple cards I sent, and I would never send these cards to SGC. And the reason for it is if you take a look, the centering is really bad left to right. However, this qualifies for PSA 8 because of the percentages. And that's one of the big mistakes a lot of people do when they grade, is they don't read the rubrics. They're very upfront, the grading companies, about how they grade their cards. They tell you the percentages. They tell you about wrinkles. They tell you about print lines. They tell you all the information you need to know. And then people complain and bitch about their grades when they don't understand how these card companies do grade. Same thing. I measured the percentages. I knew that this would get an 8. It's very sharp and crisp, but has the centering issue. Now, if I sent that to SGC, it would only get a 7 because the rubric says so. They can only give the card a 7 because of the centering. And this card I only sent to SGC, and the reason I did was it was in a screw down holder. PSA, if you have a card that's fitting in a screw down holder that's non recessed and it pushes on the card for years and years and years, PSA knows. And what they do is they just send you back the card saying, we will not grade it. This card is considered altered. So SGC is they're more lenient with it. So if you have a card that was in a screw down holder, don't even bother with PSA. Just send it to SGC. And this card got a 7. And I think it got a 7 because there's a little print line, but this is very common. I've seen like PSA 8s and 9s with print lines like that. But I think it's really hard to see, but like if you magnify it, like you could see a little bit of wear on these corners, but very minor. So I used to grade and spend a lot of time looking at the cards with loupes, magnification. Now I don't even bother. This is my grading supplies here. So I use glasses because my vision's going away. And the other thing that I use is I get a card that I know is approximately the size that of a normal card should be. So for example, this card is a known size, and all I do is two things. First of all, I measure the card. So I take a card, right? Just hold it up. Make sure that it's the same size for the height and the length. And if it measures up, we're good to go. Now, I have had a couple of cards returned to me. Not that many, but PSA, when they measure, they're really concerned about trimming. These cards weren't trimmed, but this card is very strange. So when I measure it top to bottom, it is short for a Robin-Yount, but side to side, this card's actually wider than the average card. So a lot of these like 1970s cards, the way that they were cut, even the 1980s, there's like a lot of like little slant cuts and things. Don't think the card is trimmed. Don't blame the seller. They were cut very, the quality control is horrible. So this card got returned back to me, right? And this is what you'll see. You'll see something like min size, right? So do not hold our min size. So it did not meet the minimum size. I'm going to try to grade that card again. It is not short by a lot, and that card has beautiful corners. Just a shame it didn't grade. Here's another one that they used to grade all the time, these minor league cards. And the way that they're cut, these things were cheap, beautiful card, but they don't grade these a lot now because they measure the cards. Now, I could go back and look at eBay, and they graded tons of these cards that were even smaller than mine. But now they measure the cards every single time, and they'll just send them back to you now. They don't want to take any risk of people trimming cards, so it's kind of a shame with that. So I measure the cards, and then the other thing I do is look at my glasses and just inspect the surface. This is all I do. So here with this card, I was going to grade it, but do you see that little tiny wrinkle right there? Oh, my thumb. Hi, that didn't focus. That little tiny wrinkle above. So right there. That causes the card to lose all its value, which in my opinion is kind of ridiculous. So this is not a grading candidate. However, have you seen one of these Gooden rookies centered like this? This card has value to me. This is going to go into a top loader. This is going to be an absolutely beautiful card for me to have in a top loader. So not really too worried about it. And some cards I just won't grade because they're so common. So a lot of these junk wax, I have piles and piles and piles of these Randy Johnson. I used to give these away. I have like a couple of hundred of them. So, well, how did I get that many? Well, one of my PCs, I should go over this one time, is they have the Marlboro Air. So, like, if you take a look at the card here in the box, in some of these versions, they have a Marlboro ad, and there's many different types. So, some of them you can actually read the word Marlboro. Some of them, I mean, there's a couple that in existence which have the full ad, not even doctored or tried to take away. And I mean, those cards are worth an absolute fortune with the clear sign in it. But they try to all these weird things to try to get the ad out. So like here, like this is like a black scribble, so they try to scribble it out, and you can see the green outline around it. And then I don't know if this is going to show up. They tried like boxes around it, so you can actually see the outline of the box around where the ad was. And I think I'm up to about 9 different types of errors for the Randy Johnson. I think a lot of people are more familiar with the 1989 F-Face Bill Ripken, and there was lots like they did like a white scribble, they did like a black scribble, they did a black box, which is the most common, and some of them they have the F-Face written right on the card. So, with my grading right now, stacks of cards, waiting for the companies to reduce the prices. And what do I really suggest? I suggest that you, when you grade cards, this is part of grading. You have to make mistakes to learn how to grade. Now, right now, if you use PSA, it's going to cost you $22 a card to make the mistake, and you're going to have to wait 3 to 5 months to get the cards back in your hand. Now, SGC, you get the cards back in your hand very quickly, but the mistakes are going to be worth $30 a piece, or maybe 23 if you use a bulk submitter. But it's going to be very expensive to make these mistakes. When I first started grading, the mistakes were PSA. It was like $10 a card. And I got them back in a reasonably quick period of time so I could learn from those mistakes. And that's kind of the problem that we have with grading with a lot of new people is you should be scared of grading because it's going to cost you a lot of money and the mistakes will happen. And I even make mistakes. I have made tons of mistakes, but really, I mean, it was like an $8 mistake. So here's one. And by the way, so this got a 6. I thought this was a perfect 10. It looks absolutely gorgeous. There's no problems with the corners. I looked at everything. And I can't find it again. There's a little tiny crease that goes like right here. And I looked at this card again yesterday, and I spent about 5 minutes and I couldn't find it. But I did find it the first time. It took me about like 10 minutes to find the little tiny crease like through this case. So when you get a low grade like that, don't blame the grading company and say like, oh, they ripped you off or they didn't grade the card correctly. Typically, whenever I got grades that were 6s and 4s and things like that, I made the mistake. Or, I mean, it's even a possibility that they damaged the card when they were grading it, right? Things like that happen. But always, before you complain, look underneath a bright light at the card from every angle, spend about 5-10 minutes, and 90% of the time, you're going to find that issue. So let me know if you're grading right now at these prices or just doing what I'm doing, just stacking up your card savers. So I hope everybody has a great day and keep on collecting.